is involved in this project, but they are not just involved in one project. For cost wise, this is for Buddy and for Alfie. It's gonna be a little bit more difficult if you put your A or Alfie for A or Buddy B on every week. You're gonna be bloating the cost. So there are two way you can do that is by changing your salary per month only for this project, your involvement in this project, or your salary per month for full. But then you said like, okay, I'm just gonna be involved like every other week, as if you're involved in every other week. That way you calculate your cost. This way you're part time, like you're giving half a week every week, right? For this project only, because eventually for project managers you're gonna be doing multiple projects at the same time, right? So you're gonna have to split your cost for that. But for a full time team that works only on this project, you can do just put their initials there. And once you have this, you're gonna be able to see this what you call it, this timeline, and then you can estimate the cost. This is for Buddy and Alfie. That way you know that how much you should spend on the team. But when you're considering the costs, you don't just consider this is the direct labor cost, is what we call. But we're gonna have to also consider the building rent, uh, and then the operational costs like the electricity, water, internet, and stuff. You're gonna have to put it there. Yeah? And then if you have any computers, any hardwares that you have that depreciates over the years, you're gonna also have to put that. Otherwise, when we're calculating the cost, we're gonna kind of forget that we have all this stuff. Okay, so all this stuff we can set the price, we can set how long we're gonna be using that. Most of the electronics I set that to 5 years, but for building and stuff we put it the annual cost, and then we can set the usage ratio on this project, because for one computers, let's say, it might not be used only for this project, so we might want to take only part of it. But if the two computers is used fully on this project for throughout the project durations, we can set it to 100%. For building rent, operational cost is also the same, because the whole team is not gonna be what you call it, yeah, it's not gonna be working on this only. Then perhaps we can split the cost of the building rent on the operational cost by half. But if in your case, because you might be only working on one project at the same time, then you can set everything to 100%. There's no problem with that. Okay, this is only for companies like me where we take on multiple projects at the same time. Okay. Now from there, you're gonna get the direct labor cost. You're gonna get the infrastructure costs that will totals into your total costs. Okay, this is the total cost. That this is a little bit out of context for the rest, but for Alfie and for Buddy, it's gonna be useful. Then you're gonna get the direct labor costs and then your infrastructure costs. And I usually put some overhead. Overhead is gonna depend on several factors, and the factors is these numbers. If you take a look at this, there's going to be one, 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 one. Let's say suddenly features X is a little bit more difficult. Then I can just set it to 2 or set it to 3. This way, I knew that okay, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. That's going to affect this part, this the complexity level. This is the average complexity level for these things. But you can also just swing it and just think, okay, it's gonna be easy or it's gonna be difficult, and then you're gonna be changing the what is it? Yeah, there's gonna be a multiplier. Plus, you're gonna be changing the overhead. If things is more difficult, if you're taking on a new stuff that you've never done before, you might want to add more overhead to that. So most of the time, I use 10% for the overhead. But if things is a little bit more icky, I can set it to 15% tops usually, because too much overhead is gonna bloat our cost anyway. Okay, so that's gonna be 10% usually. This doesn't work for you, but perhaps in the future, if you are gonna be negotiating with clients, you're gonna be doing this too as well, the profit and then the opening buffer. So let's say you want to have like 5% profit, then you can do that. 5% is very low, by the way. So if you want to do 10, 20, 50, it's up to you. But this tool is gonna help you. Like, okay, if I want to get a 10% profit on top of my costs, 10% overhead percentage, and then I need to have an opening buffer. I need to have an opening buffer as well, because when we when we open up this price to the client, they're gonna haggle in Indonesia or in other places as well. So you're gonna have to set this. This is gonna help you. Like, okay, in this case, my total cost to completions is supposed to be like just this 2.2 something, 2.3 perhaps. I get an overhead of 200 something. then this is my total cost, 2.5 million. Okay, and I have a target profit of 10%, so another 250. So my lowest price would be 2750. Okay, but as an opening, because my opening we round up to the millions, it's a bit difficult. If we do it in the hundreds of millions, it's gonna be not it's not gonna be this far. So perhaps 2.7 you can open up at 3 millions, 2.5, because they're gonna haggle and then you're gonna go down here. Then this is used to actually calculate if you give commissions to someone. Maintenance percentage is just to calculate how much the maintenance cost will be. But for this, I also set. Let's say we're gonna give someone else a commissions of 10% out of the opening price or any price that we deal with. Okay, let's say we get a deal at 3.5, then it's gonna help you calculate this. This is just another copy of the top, so I can do two comparisons. Do I want to give 3.5 or do I want to give just 3? Then this means I get the profit that I want. This means I get less profit than I expected. But once I do like this, my lowest price was 2,750, for example. Okay, but this means I lost money on this deal, because then I have to do a 10% commissions on whoever is giving me the job. Okay, so this tool is gonna be helping me to do this, and then I get like a few uh, quick numbers that I can use to. Oh, so this is my cost per week. This is my cost per month, and this is my net gain per week or per month if I take out the commissions. Okay, so yeah, that's for the pricing. It's not too complicated. Just calculating all this stuff, and for this, after this is done, usually what I do is I'm gonna print this timeline. Now that we have this first initial kickoff meeting telling we're going to have feature A, B, C, and so on, who's going to be working on this, who's going to be working on that. Perhaps in your case, if you don't need this numbers 1, 2, 3, because you might not be able, you might not need to do the pricings and stuff, you can change this into your initials as well. Like, okay, feature A is going to be Irvianto, right? And then features, this is also Il Viento, but this is going to be Yana. Okay? Perhaps like this. Then you're going to have to update the Excel as well to set this as one, no matter what. Because this one, it kind of calculates the weak complexity. But if you don't need this, it's fine. You can just use this as your initial. So if someone's going to be working, two people's going to be working on these features, you can do like this. For example, Yana and Hanif or whoever it is, yeah, like this. Then you add that here. That's gonna reflect on the cost. Yeah. So this way, once you have this, like with all the initials of your name, you can just print this for each of the team member, have them put this on their desk. So every day, you can just, what date is this? This is 12th, right? So let's say this is like 20 of July. Then when it's 20th of July, you can see, okay, 17, 24, 20th of July, this is what you should be doing. So in my table, I got like this. So a quick glimpse. I got like lots of timelines that I have on my tables. This project and these projects. Yeah, there are several timelines that I use. So every time I come to my tables, this is for Evianto and Alfie and Buddy perhaps. Once you have this table, once you have this, like this, right? I'm gonna be lining up things. I like to do things manually. If you want to do it more sophisticatedly with software or anything, feel free to do so. But I like to see papers on my desk. That way I know that something is still due. So with these papers, I'm gonna be lining like, okay, this is gonna be done at this time, and so on, and go through all the pages, and then I'm gonna bring this page and then start visiting the team members. Like for example, okay, this week, let's say, it should be feature A should be done by Irvianto. Did he have any problem? I'm gonna go visit him on his table and then ask him, do you have any trouble, and so on. Uh, we do this, or I do this because I think I don't want to waste the rest of the team members' time. team members' time, because in some company, larger company usually, you have like the daily stand-up meeting, right? Every morning you're gonna come, you're gonna be sitting together in a circle or in a meeting rooms with all the teams. They're gonna be graphic designers, they're gonna be programmers, they're gonna be this and that, okay? And then the project manager is gonna be sitting and then ask people to present, ask people to update their or reports on what have you done in the past 24 hours. Like, what did you do yesterday? What did you do yesterday? Like two minutes for a person. But with your teams, let's say you have like Alfie, Irvianto, Yana. So one, two, three, four, five, six. You have 6 people. With 6 people, as in a board game, 6 people, 2 minutes per people. Then that means for each persons, you're gonna have like 10 minutes of downtime. Each players, like, or each team member is gonna be spending 10 minutes doing nothing, listening to someone else's. But what's worse, if there's a graphic designer there, they're gonna be listening to craps that he doesn't really understand, and he don't really involve with that. Okay, so what I usually do is just, we did the stand-up meetings or the group meetings, but only once a week at the end of the week. But on a daily basis, I come to the office, I check my timelines, and then I reply to WhatsApps for clients and stuff. And then I go to the team members table, what each of them, like, okay, Mr. A, what have you been doing? Do you have any problems? No problems? Okay, move on. So while I'm doing that questioning, I'm asking stuff about what they do in the past few days. The other team members, they can start working right away. What do they work on? They already knew that from this timeline, because they knew that, okay, this week, so this is like 20, for example, 20th of July, I have to do these features, I have to do that features. If somehow suddenly they take a look at their timelines and then see, I don't have anything to do today, then they're gonna follow up with you or follow up with the project managers. The project managers should have, right now I have like several, my each team, they have like one or two piece of this timeline. So if they're finished working on this one, they're gonna be moving to the other one. So they knew what they are doing, and at the end of the day, they're gonna be reporting everything to the what you call it, work log. I have a work log, right? So you do the attendance there. At the end of the day, they write down what they do. If they have any problem there, they're gonna let me know. If I'm busy, they're gonna be writing that there. I'm gonna read that at the end of the day or at the end of the week. But if it's something urgent, they're gonna let me know, and I'm gonna schedule a meeting with them right away. But it's mostly it's just a one-on-one meeting. Or if we really need to the whole team, we're gonna have to schedule that outside. It's not gonna be a routine. So on a routine basis, every morning we'll just do the visit. As a project manager, I like it that way better, because that way we're not disturbing anyone else. And then I can, because there's no way you can finish things within 2 minutes. In the stand-up meetings, you know, right, in the stand-up meetings, that if we have the whole team there, okay, Alfie, what did you do for yesterday? Then you have only 2 minutes to explain. But that 2 minutes after you explain, if you have any problems, that means I'm gonna have to respond, right? So if I'm gonna have to respond, okay, we're gonna do that, that's gonna be 3 minutes. That's gonna be 4 minutes, okay? Or if I just say, okay, I'm gonna visit you later, then why do we have this meeting? I'll just visit you instead, right? So that's what I find out. So I don't do daily stand-up meetings. I do like distributed timelines. Everyone's working, then I'm gonna visit them. Okay, because most of the time you can't finish that in 2 minutes, and if you can, that means nothing's going wrong. Then you can just finish that within less than 2 minutes, perhaps. I can just visit, and if everything goes well that day, I can finish the visit within 1 hours or within half hours. Then I can go back to my place and then start working on something else. Okay. So far, do you have any questions, or do you think something is not good or anything? We can adjust that to your needs there, Buddy or Alfie, perhaps, or
Sure.
Iviato.
So, excuse me, I'll chime in. When we worked at Woven Studios,
Yep.
back when I worked in Vietnam, we had a Scrum Master who was our project manager. One of the reasons we did the stand up meeting as a group is so that people, A, get comfortable sharing their problems, and that B, everyone's aware of what the problems are. And so if they get free time, then they can help that person. And C, you know, I might not have the solution for that guy's problem. So if everybody knows what everybody's problem is, then somebody can chime in and say, "Oh, I can send you this, or I can send you that, or I can give you this link, or I can help you. So I think it works for you because you're a senior developer yourself, and so most of the time, your developers have a problem. You are the one who can solve it, or you know your team well enough you can direct them on who to
True.
solve it. So I think your system works for you. I don't know if it's a universal system, but that's why we do the stand-up Scrum meetings the way that we've done in the past. You are right; it should be 2 minutes per person, and then yes, you respond to it individually later. And this also just keeps people on track, right? It lets people know what was done yesterday, what wasn't done yesterday. I plan for us to still stick with the Scrum meeting, but we do need to get in the habit of number one, sharing our problems and not hiding them. And then number two, we need to get in the habit of making it a Scrum meeting, not a design meeting. But because this is our first week, this is still our kickoff, this is still our first project, a lot of these meetings are turning into design meetings. And so we just need to figure out if that's going to be the normal for us for the first couple of weeks or if we need to adjust that later. But I think it's important that everybody heard that you do have sort of your stand-up meetings where people tell you their problems, but you're just doing it on a one-on-one basis rather than a round-robin basis.
Yeah. I did that on a weekly basis as well. So on Fridays, usually, we're going to have that meetings as well at the end of the week. So at the end of the week, usually Friday around 3, 4 o'clock, if we don't have work, but if we have heavy workload, we're gonna do that at around 5. So like 1 or 2 hours before we stop working on Friday, we're gonna do the circles, and then we'll talk about problems first. We're gonna talk about problems in the office. Like, do you have any problems with your project? So how's the project going? That way, other people also knew so what's happening in the company. But we only do that like once a week. We don't do that on a daily basis. It's for me, I think it's a waste of time. Like, yes, you can help or something, but usually you can fix that on it. But again, it's up to you. But in my place, we do that only once a week at the end of the week. And after we do the whole project things, like, okay, do you have problems with project? If we've talked about all the projects, then I ask them, like, do you have any problems in the office? Like, is for example, like, is Buddy bothering you, or is this guy bothering you? Because we have girls as well, right? Is there any dynamics that are changing, or anyone's not liking anyone else, and so on? Or do you need something? Do we want to have a new coffee machines, or do we want to have this? Do we want to have that? Usually we do that on Friday. And sometimes they ask or share things that is not really related to the work anyway, like things like okay, like things like about their uh, finances and stuff like that. Yeah, but I do that on a weekly basis usually. So question from Yana: what happened to the Gantt chart if there's some kind of bottleneck in that week or day? uh, that's the thing. For the project manager should map out these things at the beginning. That's why you need to have the kickoff meeting. uh, I'm kind of lucky because I do this thing myself. Like, I have the experience and I have the knowledge. That way, I can quickly identify. Okay, this is gonna have a bottleneck. This is gonna have a bottleneck. So usually, in that case, we're gonna be delaying and or allocating the person to work on something else that is not entirely related until that job can be done. So yeah, it's based on the experience of the team and the project managers to know, like, you're not gonna be able to do this unless until this thing is done. But if this thing is not done, then it's gonna take like 2 to 3 weeks, for example. Then for the 2 to 3 weeks, you're gonna assign that guy to do something else. Or if you have multiple project, you can assign him to different project. So yeah, that's usually what I do. Did that answer your questions? Okay, good.
Yep,
Any other
good
questions?
questions.
Hmm, I'm quite agreed with Mr. Febndy. I think I did similarly, but just with different tools. Yeah, I usually right now use like a color code in the Trello that I can spot on the problem. If they did bottleneck, I already, because I think that myself as a problem solver and people that have the powers to assign the people or the resources, and that's why I usually ask about the runabout meeting only once per week. But for the problem in the every department, because right now I run through two departments, I usually use like what Mr. Febndy did with a different kind of tools that in my Trello, if there are pink color, it's labeled as a bottleneck, and green color there it's need help urgently. I just look at that and go to the person what I need. If they need someone to help, or if I don't have the answer, I will find the answer with my supervisor, buddy, or etc., without disrupting the others, like taking the time, whatever. So what Mr. Fendi reminds me about the project management tools that really help us, really help me right now to do the project managing. Yeah, before we like to, when I work in my last company, when I didn't know anything about the Gantt chart, about the project management app, usually we waste so many time to talk about cultural things. Mr. FMD maybe know about that, but yeah, cultural things really eat up so many production timeline. Yeah, but
Yep.
I really agreed with what Mr. FMD said in here, and the cost, how you formulate your analytic about the cost, it's really something new for me. That thank you for sharing about that. I think I can implement it for my efficiency. Thank you, Mr. FMD.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, buddy? Perhaps.
In terms of the project management, I don't know. I think Urvianto is the one that needs to be asking the most
Yep.
questions here. And then if we have any time after this, I'd love for you to just share some best advice or standard operating procedures that you guys use in the studio or that you recommend for other studios that are operating. But
On
Urvianto,
what?
uh, anything, open floor.
Okay. Uh,
But
uh, my
Urvianto,
my mind just went blank. If you ask, yeah, go ahead. Do you have any
yeah,
questions?
Urvianto, you're the one that needs to be stepping up and asking the questions here, brother. You're the one that has to list everything that you just saw.
Yeah, yeah, one more of my question is already answered by Yana, and then my other question is, if let's say it's some kind like bottleneck, let's say the timeline is behind the schedule, like it's not on time, how the timeline will be going? Is it still going like what we planned before, or it's need some revision?
Okay. Then I'm gonna have to share this again. Okay. So let's say, mm, okay. So when handling that, in my case, I do have. Wait, let me do some simulations there. The problem with setting up this timeline is sometimes you do it like this. Okay, this is a very tight timeline. So it's also something that, as a project manager, from my experience, you're gonna have to learn how to time this right. So sometimes you can do things like this. Let's say like this. Okay. This is what we could call a buffer, right? Okay. Sometimes you're gonna be doing things like this, which is not good. Okay. In this case, if you take a look at this, yeah, I'm putting four items in 1 week, but this four, there's also this one. So we're gonna be doing 6 things in 1 week, which is very difficult for a two-person team unless they know what they're doing. Okay, so it depends on what kind of items here. If it's simple items, if you break down, but in my case, remember that I only do modules here. So this means in 1 week I have to finish 4 modules. That's crazy. If I don't place 2 seniors on that week, it's almost impossible to finish. Yeah. So I rarely do this, but sometimes if I'm confident, like, okay, so this is a project that I've done in the past. We just need to copy it. We just need to, after we copy it, we don't just copy it, but we do all the checkings and this and that. Perhaps we can do something like this. But usually, if I do things like this, I'm gonna do this. See, this is a carryover, meaning I'm gonna be assuming that this tree is gonna be done, but this one's not gonna be done, and then I'm gonna be carrying this over to the next week. So this week, if I want to go crazy again, I can only do three. Or if I do four like this, it's actually three and a half, something like that. Okay, so this is I know this doesn't seem like I'm trying to answer your questions just now. What happened if there's a lag? But uh, delay in the timelines usually happens because too optimistic planning. So usually at the beginning we want to do a pessimistic planning, especially for for a company like me. Uh, Most of the time I think I've been working with Buddy on a retainer basis, so we're just doing what we have for the months, and then any changes that comes in is going to be there. But for a client project I usually do project based, so the scope for things are very tight. So I prefer to do things pessimistically. So I'm going to do, instead of this, if I knew this could be done, I'm going to do this instead, and I'm going to do this instead perhaps. This way, I'm gonna be ahead. Most of the time, I'm gonna be ahead. Okay, so in that case, if I'm ahead, that person I can allocate to someone else, to other projects as well. This way you're preventing the delay. But now let's say that's the I think the most efficient or the most meaningful way to actually avoid delay is planning your things not too optimistically, but you have some kind of pessimisms to your planning. Okay, always give a buffer. So then, uh, let's say suddenly, oh, also another thing. Let's say you have this main menu or something, the client side, which this is gonna require the server sides. Okay, we knew that this is gonna require the server sides, and this database design. If you take a look at this is gonna be a bottleneck in this case. If this is not done, uh, this usually can't begin. Most of the time it could, but sometimes it can't. Okay, jadi uh, usually I do this like the first 3 week is gonna be like this. Okay, for database design and UI designs for sure at the beginning, database designs might take only 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, but then the whole thing like this, I'm gonna be moving it forwards, moving it backwards like this. Okay, this way, you if you knew there's gonna be a bottleneck, you kind of prevent it by doing this, and you know that if you have a server, if you have sometimes client, most likely they're gonna be waiting for the servers. Main menu perhaps not so much ya kan, tapi you can do this as well. Jadi main menu can start first, and then once they get to the login system, so this is main menu, because main menu you don't need the servers, and then the login system. If you need it here, but this only starts here because it have to wait for the database designs, you're gonna be moving this backward 1 more week. Okay, or if you have something else to do before that, you do something else before that. But back end, front end, usually server have to be done first. After that, you're gonna do this. Sometimes you can do things in parallel and then connect later afterwards. In that case, you can do parallels like this. Like the main menu goes first, but the login systems you're gonna delay that for a bit. But perhaps while you're waiting, this is perhaps the situations that we have. You finish the main menu, login system you can't do that yet because you're gonna be waiting for something else. But then you can make like the settings perhaps, because that's not, you don't actually need the servers, so you can do the settings. So this goes to this, and goes to this. This is done after this. So that's also part of the planning to prevent delays. Okay, but let's say there's a delays now. Things goes well, everything goes well, and then let's say there's a delay here. This is supposed to be done. Let's say we're here, and this is supposed to be done, but then this is not done yet. Okay, uh, that way this can't continue. What I usually do, yeah, it depends, because I can't answer this like you always have to do this every time, but it depends. Sometimes in that case I'm gonna do a switch. Jadi in real life, sometimes it's not gonna be one continuous line like this. Sometimes you're gonna have like this, perhaps like this. And when we take a look at this is separate modules. This is separate modules. Okay, like these two. This is interdependence. So this is a package. Can you see the block? You can see the block, right? So this is one package of modules. But let's say we have a delay here. Okay, so this is delayed, meaning what will be affected is this, right? You find the first cutoff that you can find. Let's say, well, I can change that because this is conditional formatting. But let's say this is delayed. Yeah. Now, since this is delayed, uh, your team that's supposed to be working here, most of the time they have to wait for this. You're gonna have to find a split like this. Okay. Oh, so this is a whole new modules, and then you can switch that like this. Sometimes I can do that, but then again it will depends on the project and on the conditions. You'll get that skills, or you get that this decision making process once you actually knew the project. Once you go with the project, okay, we're gonna have delay here, because things is still being worked on. Let's say this is still being worked on here, right? So we're gonna move this back, and we're gonna do this here instead. That way, perhaps this can be done first, because perhaps there are some things that can be done here, and then once this finish, it's gonna go here first, or finish things here first before continuing here, and then this gonna be delayed. Hopefully, if this is not dependent on the project, but then again, it's kind of difficult to answer that, because we're gonna have to see on a case by case basis. Sometimes you can do that switch, or sometimes you can add more people, meaning like, okay, if this doesn't work, then you add more people to help with this part, or help with this part, and so on. So to answer that, planning is the main thing that you can do to prevent those things from happening, the delays. Don't plan too optimistically. You have to plan a little bit more pessimistic. Okay, but don't make it too pessimistic as well. You're gonna be bloating the timeline. Then the second is, make sure the delay doesn't happen by following up daily, right? And if you find a problem, this is also something that you might have in your team. Sometimes your mindset, is there a fresh graduate here, or everyone already have a working experience? Fresh graduate
Yeah,
here?
I'm a fresh graduate.
I need fresh graduate.
Okay. So for a fresh graduate, there's a new mindset you have to learn in the workplace. You're not working alone. This is not like in your school or in university when you have to finish your project on your own. You can cheat here. You can ask your friend. You can Google stuff. So a lot of fresh graduate, they have, or new employees usually, they have what you call it, the fear of, okay, if I can't solve this, my friends or my colleagues or my boss is gonna think that I'm not good. So I have to finish this on my own, right? So sometimes it happens. So that's one of the things that I always tell my new employees, like, you have the whole team here. Yes, you should try to finish or solve things on your own, but if you spend like more than half an hour on something, that means you should ask someone, because this is not a final project for your school. You want to finish thing as soon as possible. So sometimes that might be one of the small problems that we overlook, because they want to like prove themselves, or they want to make sure that they don't disappoint the team or the boss. So they try to finish things by themselves. But most of the time, if you're a new employee on a old company, so the company is already there and you have seniors, you can ask them and then solve your problems quickly. Then you learn from that. I think that's one of the sometimes silly reason why we have delays in the project.
Great advice. That's a really great advice, actually.
So I give them a deadline, usually like 15 minutes to 30 minutes. If you can't solve that in 15 minutes or 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes is the maximum. Then you look for someone else. So 5 minutes is still okay. You still be Googling stuff, right? 10 minutes is still okay. But once you get to 15 minutes, something is wrong there. Either you don't understand the stuff, or it's not out there in the internet for you to find. Then you start looking for your team, for your seniors, and so on. Okay, anything else? Did that answer your questions? I'm pretty sure that doesn't answer the whole questions, because it's gonna be very dependent on the case by case basis. We're gonna have to see the project, what we can do. So as a project managers for Alfie, for Ivianto, what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna make sure that the whole teams always have something to do. If they don't have something to do, like, okay, crap, there's a bottleneck, there's nothing else we can do on this project, then you can take a look at the other project first. Like, okay, do we have any other side projects, or do we have any other things that we can do? Let's move them to that project first for 1 or 2 weeks, make sure they don't overcommit there, and they can leave at any time for that project, and then take them back once the bottleneck is resolved. I think that's the best solutions for things that can't be salvaged.
Very cool. I'm going to give these guys a couple minutes to come up with some questions.
Yeah,
Do you
sure.
have any other tips and advice and best practices for developers, for designers, et
I
cetera, et
have
cetera?
a tip for you, perhaps. Now that we talk about that kind of thing previously, just now, I have a tip for you and for the upper management, like perhaps Alfie or Ervianto in the futures. Right. One of my tip is to let them do mistake, let them make mistake. That's what there's also one thing that bothers the teams a lot. I'm not just running this company, right? For IT company, I'm supervising it on a daily basis, so it's quite clear what they knew me. They kind of knew how I operate, so they understand what I want, right? But I also run two different company, one of which is a game company, and the other one is a car workshops. The thing is, on those company, making mistakes could be fatal. It could really hurt the company reputations because they're dealing with customers, or we could have pay something for breaking something that the customers owns, the car, for example. But it happens. If one mistake happens, and then we kind of scold them, and then they get stressed, the rest of the team is going to be stressed as well. And what we don't realize is the fear of making mistake sometimes cause them to not operate, or not what you call it, perform correctly. So what I do is, every time I have the time to talk with them, I always told them it's okay to make mistake. We try not to make mistake, but if you have any mistake, or if you have to make any decisions, if it's below this threshold, go for it. You can make the decisions. For example, in the board game company, I could tell them, like, if you're gonna make a decisions for the store managers, yeah, store managers, you can make your decisions, good or bad. You do that, but I'm gonna give you a threshold. If you think the loss or the risk that we're gonna lose is less than 5 millions, go for it. I can still handle that as the owner. I told them, like, if you if shit happens because of your decisions, if it's still below 5 millions, go for it. I'm okay with that. So they have this kind of safety net. Wait a second. Someone's looking for me. Wait.
Yeah. And our call is going to end here in about 8 or 9 minutes. Let's try and have our questions ready for him, and try not to go over the time of the call. All right, he's back. Cool. Continue.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, because in the past, in the car workshop company, we do have a problem that they don't want to make decisions. They are afraid to actually make any decisions, because in the past things happens, and then they kind of reluctant to actually make decisions, fearing they might make mistakes. So in that case, you as the owner, or as the higher management, you should give them some, safety net. Like, if you do these mistakes, I'm still okay with that. So yeah, that might not be the problem that you have right now, but it could be a problem that arises that we don't actually realize. Now, with I saw that with the confidence that they are allowed to make mistakes, things are getting better. You get better initiative from your teams, because now they think, like, okay, if I still do these mistakes below this value, it's still okay. Buddy will not be angry, or he can still solve that for me, or something like that.
Yep. Good advice. All right, guys. We only got about 7 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions, or Febndy, do you have any more tips?
Not at the moment, but that's one of the things that I could think of.
Doesn't look like anybody wants to speak up.
Okay.
So, in your project
Uh,
management, you talked about modules. How do you define your module here?
It's a features usually. For example, like in Azure Helms, like inventory. So the inventory systems, most of the time, inventory systems is not gonna interact. It's not gonna be coupled. You know the term coupled and decoupled. For programmers, you should understand that. If it's not coupled tightly, you can separate that as a modules. So, for example, like inventory systems is not gonna be. It's one modules, but where does it cut? We can say perhaps like characters could be its own modules, like the characters, like the stats and so on, but inventory could be its own modules. Okay, but the connecting point for that is going to be the items, right? So first you're going to have to work on the characters first, and then you're going to work on the items, then the inventory. So inventory is like it's dependent, codependent to that. But items and characters is two separate modules. You can do that in parallels, I think. So items work on its own, characters work on its own. But inventory is gonna be that one modules that connects the two of them. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
Sure. And then in your Gantt chart here, it looks like most modules last a week or a week and a half. Is that on purpose, or is there
Mm,
any logic to what I'm saying, or how do you do it?
this is an example. So most of the thing just lasts for 1 week, but I did send you my real project, right? And most of them still only last for 1 week because uh, that's because I've designed it that way, like as in I made the framework. So we make our own framework. So we make websites and applications, right? But then I make the framework. So whenever you have a free times, you should spend some times. For example, like the what's call it, if there's a delay and then you have a bottleneck, you can allocate this team to, okay, what you do instead, you can just make one of the things into modules. That's what I did. So I at the end of the day, I make the framework, which is the gemstones. You saw that, right? With that gemstones, I can actually finish a lot of modules within a few months, like one month, 2 months. All the login system, this and that, can be finished quickly. That's why most of the things in my timelines only takes 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, and so on. So it's part of how I design the system, like the applications that we actually use. But it's also a good practice to actually make the modules as small as possible for your projects. That way, you can if need sometime there are clients that I have this have to be finished as soon as possible. That means we're gonna be adding new team member, and if we have more team members, separating them into modules is gonna be easier. If you do that one monolithic system, it's gonna be taking too much time to actually merge the thing to resolve conflicts and stuff. So making it into modules is gonna be more manageable. In my case, it's not gonna apply to your case because mine's more like a web development base, and we can separate things into different files and then merge them together afterwards. But in Unity, perhaps you can do the script. Like one teams work on one script, like you did use the game managers, this managers, that managers. Each of them could be one separate modules, and someone's working on that. But with Unity, it's a little bit more complicated because usually they have to communicate with each other. So the architectures needs to be really designed well on how they can communicate with each other independently. Did I answer your questions, buddy?
Yeah, that's perfect. Cool. Alfie,
Okay.
you had a question, I think?
but I think how Mr. Febndy, because in my experiences sometimes that me and my peers is struggle with how you trust your teammates about
Okay.
handling sometimes, because for people it can make people do the worst thing in the management, right? Like a micromanaging that most people didn't like micromanaging, but I
Sure.
think micromanaging is the fruits of lack of trust, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's I want to know about from your experience how you can trust, especially for a new guy, for a
Yes.
people with a how you can trust that team. Thank you.
You just have to trust. So my my I'm currently have a I have a new staff right now. So what we're doing is we do work from home right now because the office is just new. It's just me here right now in the office. But I just have to trust them, and cut nip nip the problems in the bud, right? So the moment you notice that these people can't be trusted, you let them go. That's my main point. My teams, I have full trust in my teams. That's why I try not to micromanage. But most of the times they are asking me to solve the problems. Like I have this problem, so I'm gonna go there solve this. Sometimes I also questions myself. Like I ask my one of my seniors programmers, Johan. I asked them, "Do you have any problems? Is everything going well?" Yes, going well. And then I have like I'm not sure if it's going well, but turns out it's going well. So yeah, that's that small mistrust, but you have to control yourself not to micromanage. I think micromanaging is not good in the long run. Perhaps if you micromanage, it's gonna be good because then you solve things quickly. But then you're not letting them grow. You let them do mistakes. You let them make mistakes. Is gonna allow them to grow. What you want to have, in my opinions, is their trust to you as well and their loyalties, more or less. So yeah, you just have to trust them and then evaluate.
Yep, answering it. Thank you, Mister. Thank you, sir.
And
Sometimes I
also,
feel that.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we're about to end the call here automatically. So thank you, Febndy, for sharing your
okay,
valuable wisdom and time with us. And just so everybody knows, Febny's been operating his company for about 10 years now.
yep,
So there's definitely a lot to learn there.
okay.
Thank you, Mr.
See you then.
Febndy.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
there.
you,
I
Mas.
think I'll visit there.
Thank you. Thank you.